Assalamualaikum and very good morning to Dr. Zainul and friends. So we are from Group 4 are going to present taxation in Islamic based transaction, which is IBT. Concept of taxation in Islam. Islamic taxes are taxes sanctioned by Islamic law and they are based on the legal status of taxable land and on the communal or religious status of taxpayer. So Islamic taxation includes the following terms, which is zakat, jizya, kharaj, and ush. So this is known as permanent source of revenue for Baitul Mal, which is state or treasury, to cover the expenditure of the Islamic state originally. So the expenditure including jihad, military industries, spending for the poor and the service for the community. Next. So zakat is only imposed on Muslims, which is generally described as a 2.5% tax on savings to be donated to the Muslim poor and needy. So jizya is a per capita yearly tax historical levied by Islamic State on certain non-Muslim subjects. Dhimis. Dhimis is a non-Muslim who permanently residing in Muslim land under Islamic law. In return, they will be provided safety, basic needs, and also other public services. The third one is kharaj. Kharaj is a land tax that was originally paid only by non-Muslims, but then imposed on Muslims as well. The fourth is 10% tax on the land harvest of irrigated land, 10% on harvest from rainwater land, and another 5% tax on land dependent on well water, and also 10% tax on merchandise imported from states that tax the Muslims. Next, taxation in Islam. The perspective of tax in Islam is completely different from capitalism because it emphasizes of taxation on wealth rather than income. So Islamic tax goals and values encompassing all aspects of human life, including social, political, and also economic issues. So Islamic-based transactions, IBT, is a term used for any financial transaction that is conducted based on Sharia, which is the body of Islamic law and certain defined ethical values. There are 5 principles of Islamic transaction. The first one is belief in divine guidance. From belief that it is firm belief that each Muslim should follow every command given by the divine revelations through Prophet Muhammad, and the obedience from servants of Allah is required not only the worship but also in their economic activities. The second one is provision of interest or riba. Islam forbids all forms of interest of riba, be it for investment or consumption purpose. So instead, the financial institution will earn profit and fees charged on the financing facilities provided to the customers. The third one is provision of haram investment. Any enterprise involved with any activities or commodities that are unlawful to Islam or may harm mankind are haram. For example, the transaction that prohibited, including the transactions which involve pork, gambling, and also liquor. Next is real estate financing. It is in Islamic non-financial institution that must trade in real assets or services, unlike conventional financial institutions who trade in money. And lastly, profit and loss sharing. In Islamic finance, there is guarantee rate of return that Muslim ex partners in the business in which they share profit from their effort and risk taken. So we are passed to other next member.
Okay, hi, so I'm going to present for the conventional versus Islamic finance transaction. So the conventional, we have the property financing. The borrowers pay an interest on the outstanding principal amount. Interest rates can be a fixed rate or based on a floating rate. The customer will pay to the bank loan amount together with interest at the private rate is based on a margin above the bank's base lending rate. So for the Islamic finance, we have Wa'ibi Taman Ajil. This refers to the sale of property on a deferred payment basis, and the property chosen by the client will be bought to the client at an agreed price, including the bank's markup. The monthly installment of the bank selling price will not change throughout the tenure of the financing. Next, with the conventional, we have the leasing agreement. The first one is the operating leases, an agreement between a lessor who owns an asset and who wants to earn return without losing ownership, and a lessee who needs to use the asset and who cannot afford or does not want to own it. And for the financial leases, is the lessee has the option to purchase the asset at the end of the lease, and also the ownership of the asset is transferred to the lessee at the end of the lease term. For Islamic, we have Ijara, operating lease. A bank of buys a property for a customer and then leases to him over a duration, and fees are set in advance, thus in earning profits by charging rentals. We have also the Al-Ijarah Sumal Al-Ba'i and also Ijarah Muntahiyah Bitamlik. For AITAV, the agreement to transfer the ownership of the underlying asset by the end of the lease is by means of a sale. IMB has for option to transfer the legal title of the asset to the lessee, whether as a gift, for token as a consideration, lease that ends with ownership transferred. Okay, the conventional is the conventional insurance associated with riba and major garau, both of which are forbidden by Islamic principles. In Islamic finance transaction, we have takaful, an agreement by a group who desires to protect each other from defined risks and mishaps by contributing to a pool of money out of their resources. We have the mudarabah and also wakalah. Takaful product can run on donation or non-profit basis or a hybrid or profit-sharing agencies. For next is the concept and structure. Taxes are imposed on the wealth of Muslims, which is in excess of their basic needs and their luxuries according to normal standards of living. We have five, which are Sharia index, business structures, sale and purchase structure, and also leasing structures. First one is the Sharia index. It is an index of companies that comply with the Islamic law or Sharia. Most Sharia indices which have been created based on the existing or an underlying index. The first, we have two procedures, which are the first one is the exclude all non-Sharia compliant companies such as pork, alcohol, gambling, tobacco, etc. And the second procedure is the amount of debt cash and the proportion of revenue that is accrued from non-compliant activity is also taken into consideration. Index can be expanded and non-compliant stocks is in the index are constantly monitored. Next, we have a business structure. The first one is the mudarabah, a partnership structure which involves two parties where one or more investors contribute funds and the other part, normally a financial intermediary mudarib, contributes investment management services to the partnership. Mudarib receives a fee for its service. The fee may either be fixed sum or calculated in proportion to the profit generated. There is no guarantee that a profit will be achieved at all or that any of the funds invested will be retained. Next, second one in the business structures is the musyarakah. All partners contribute funds or other assets and not only services to the partnership, and all partners may but are not required to assume an executive position. Profit generated but not the losses may be allocated according to a different ratio of funds invested. It is often used for long-term investments such as the construction of infrastructure. Next, there are different forms in musyarakah structures such as diminishing musyarakah. Specific mechanisms allow the financial institution which contributed the funds to reduce its participation in the partnership continuously over time. And the second one, B, limited permanent musyarakah. It's the structure which has been established for a non-defined period of time and which will be continued as long as the partners wish to continue. Next.
So now let's move on to the sale and purchase structures. In these structures, we have four. The first one is murabaha. This structure is based on the cost plus principle, which is always used in the trade principle. The financial institution will acquire a specific asset from supplier and takes title to it. Then the financial institution will sell the asset to the customer and transfer the title to its customer at a price that equal to the price cost plus the profit margin that have been agreed. The payment will be made by the customer either by using the deferred payment or by using the installment. The financial institution may take collateral security. Uh, in Malay, we call it as cagaran to secure the contract. By acquiring the title of the asset, the financial institution, such as bank, will assume commercial risk, for which reason it is entitled to realize a profit. In Murabaha, the usually asset involved is such as car. The customer will refer to the bank to purchase car, and then the bank will sell back the car to the customer at a higher price to realize a profit. The next one is istisna. It is quite similar to the murabaha concept, but murabaha is used to find the purchase of a specified asset, but while in istisna, it is used to fund the construction of a particular asset. For example, in the construction of a restaurant or house. The third structure is tawarruk. It is a reverse murabahas concept. The financial institution will purchase an asset from a third party and sells and transfer it on the deferred payment basis to its customer. Then the customer will immediately sell the asset to another third party for immediate delivery and payment. It means that they will involve four parties in this tawarruk. The example of tawarruk is exchanging commodities. The fourth structure is buying al-salam. It is based on advance payment of the discounted purchase price of an asset yet to be manufactured concept. Upon delivery at the specific and defined date, the purchaser could resell it at full purchase price and realize profit. But there are some disagreement between scholars about this structure. The first one is whether the asset must be available when signing the agreement or at the defined time of delivery, and whether what are the period of time must elapse between signing the agreement and the delivery of the asset. The next one is leasing structures. We have two structures in leasing. The first one is ijara. Ijara is a financial institution acquire a specified asset which is based upon a murabaha or istinas principle, then it is leased to a customer. The transaction is agreed upon period of time at rental payments either predetermined or determinable by reference to an underlying plus agreed upon margin. There is no transfer of ownership in ijara. This includes insurance and maintenance, whereby it practices the principle of Sharia, such as houses. To reduce the risk, often special purpose vehicles are positioned by the financial institutions to hold the title in the assets and to lease the assets to the customers. And next one, we have ijara wa iktina. It is the same concept as ijara. However, the customer is provided with an additional right to acquire ownership in the leased asset at the end of the contractual term. As for the purpose, the customer will make payments into an investment account and use the profit to pay the purchase price. Next, we have types of Islamic transactions. Islamic transactions consist of six principles and four main features. Each principle of finance transaction is named into the several types as follows. The first principle is sale-based principle. It's either sale-based or debt-based. Sale-based we have buying salam istisna, and debt-based we have PBA murabahah. The second one is the profit sharing principles, which is mudarabah and musyarakah. The third one is lease-based principle, which is operating ijarah and also financial ijarah. The fourth one is fee-based principles, which is agency that is known as wakalah and commission that is known as jualah. The fifth one is the free of charge principle, which we call it as Qard Hasan. And the last one is the supporting contract or security that we call it as kafalah, rahnu or hiwalah. The most common type-based financing contract is PBA, murabahah and ijarah. The last practices equity-based financing contract is mudarabah and musyarakah. It is due to the similarity with the conventional financing contract. The common practices Islam finance transactions available in Malaysia a lot. These are some of the examples. There are 12 examples in the textbook. Now, for the Malaysian tax legislation related to Islamic finance transaction, there is no specific tax legislation to the Islamic finance transaction. However, there are certain provisions in the on Islamic transactions has been mentioned in ITA 1967. The first one is Section 2(7). In this context, the profit, which is equivalent to the interest as riba, is not allowed under Sharia. Principle derived from Islamic finance transaction will have equal treatment as in the conventional financial agreement, such as interest for tax purpose. The second one is Section 2(8). This section implies that the Act allow Islamic financing to continue without any tax issues relating to the asset transfer or lease.
Thank you. I will continue to present the third and the fourth provision on Islamic transaction. The third transaction is in section 6A sub 3. In this section, they are stated that a rebate shall be granted from the year of assessment for any zakah, fitrah, or any Islamic religious dues payment of which is obligatory and which is paid in the basis year of the year of assessment and evidenced by a receipt issued by any appropriate religious established under any written law. The fourth one is under section 18 part 3. Insurance include a takaful scheme pursuant to the Takaful Act 1984. A premium in relation to insurance includes contribution or installments payable under Takaful scheme pursuant to the Takaful Act 1984. In the fifth one is in section 6AA. In this section, the provision of section 60 and 60A shall apply mutatis mutandis to a takaful business carried on pursuant to the Takaful Act 1984. Next is the specific stamp duty exemption order related to the Islamic transaction. The first exemption is stamp duty exemption number 8 order 2000. All instruments of al-ijara had lease agreement of immovable property executed between a customer and a financier exempted from stamp duty. The second one is stamp duty exemption number 9 order 2000. All instruments of asset sale agreement of the asset purchase agreement executed between a customer and a bank made under Sharia law for the purpose of renewing any Islamic overdraft financing facility of the instruments for the Islamic bank overdraft financing facility have been duly. And the third one is stamp duty exemption number 38 order 2002. All instruments of the buy-in sell agreement or buy-in purchase agreement executed between the customer and financial institution made under the principle of Sharia law for the purpose of the issuance of credit cards. Next. Okay, the fourth one is stamp duty exemption number 2, order 2004. All instruments executed between a customer and a financier under an asset sale agreement or an asset lease agreement made under the principle of the Sharia for the purpose of renewing any Islamic revolving financing facility. And the last one is stamp duty exemption number 3 order 2004. All instruments made by any financier which are related to the purchase of property for the purpose of leaseback under the principle of Sharia or under a principal sale or and purchase agreement by which a financier assumes the contractual obligations of customer. Next is tax incentive. There are three categories of tax incentive. The first one is diversified players such as banking, takaful, and fund management. The second one is facilitate Islamic transaction, and the last one is expertise. Islamic financing tax incentives. The first one is exemption from withholding tax, interest income by non-resident financial institution established under Islamic Bank Act or other financial institution approved by the Minister of Finance are exempted from tax. Profit paid, Islamic security or debenture issued in RM uh, other than convertible loan stock approved by uh, the SC, so non-resident are exempted from withholding tax, and the profit paid to on non-ringgit Islamic security to resident or are also exempted if approved by SC or the Labuan FSA. The second one is exemption of real property gains tax (RGPT). Chargeable gains are accrued are disposal of any chargeable asset in relation to the issuance of private debt security under Islamic principle are exempted from RPGT. The third one is personal relief, tax relief not exceeding 5,000 per annum. And the fourth one, revised rate of Rita Kaful and Inward Rita Kaful. The corporate tax rate applicable for reinsurance business is the prevailing rate of 24%. For the year assessment 2019, the income tax rate of all Rita Kaful business in standardized at the rate of 8%. Inward Ritakaful is a separate source of business from the Ritakaful is subject to tax, income tax at the rate of 5%. And at the assessment of 2019, the preferential tax rate for inward Ritakaful is abolished. The first one is others. This include the pre-commencement expenses of an Islamic stockbroking company allowed as tax deduction, which commenced its business within 2 years from the date of approval by the SC. Special Purpose Vehicle or SPV established under the Corporate Companies Act 1965 or Offshore Companies Act 1990, which elects to be taxed under the Income Tax Act 1967 solely to channel funds for the purpose of issuance of Islamic security not subject to tax or tax administrative procedures subject to approval from SC.
In relation of the tax incentive given to the Islamic product in Malaysia, there is a Islamic capital market sector, which is on products and service are given a special incentive. The first one under the income tax under deduction for expenditure on issuance of sukuk, which is the recipient is issuer. Second one is stamp duty, which is exemption under which is the issuer, the recipient is issuer. Under the Stamp Act, Schedule 1, general exemption, which is issuer, the recipient. Next one is Income Tax Act 1967, revised 1971, with the real property gain tax exemption number 3, which is recipient is issuer and originator. Okay, next, I think you guys can refer on the page 260 until 263 for the other explanation. Okay, it is most of the incentive other recipient is for the originator, SPV, special purpose vehicle for end asset backed sukuk, retail sukuk, and the issuer of sustainable and responsible investment SRI sukuk, and the last one is investor. Okay, next incentive is the Islamic fund management. It is under income tax exemption number 15, or the income tax exemption amendment number 2, or the 2016, which is the recipient is fund management company. It is for the company that manage approved Islamic fund or foreign investor exempted on income received from fund management received starting from year assessment 2007 until year assessment 2020, which fund must be managed according to Sharia principle, and it is certified by the Securities Commission. It is it is for the company, also for the companies that manage. It is for also for the company that manage Islamic fund of local investor, which is exempted on income received from fund management service, starting from year assessment 2008 until year assessment 2020.
So for the another special incentive, Islamic Fund Management, Business Trust or Islamic Real Estate Investment Trust REIT under Income Tax Exemption Order 2014 and Income Tax Exemption Amendment made in number 3 Order 2016, it stated that qualifying companies which manage approved Islamic funds of business trust or REIT are granted income tax exemption on income received from fund management services from the year assessment 2014 until 2020. So the fund must be managed in accordance with Sharia principles and certified by the SC.
Okay, next is a special incentive for business trust. Under stamp duty exemption number 7 order 2013, trustee manager acting on behalf of the business trust is granted a stamp duty exemption on all instruments executed by such trustee manager for the purpose of initial offering of the business trust approved by the SC on or after 1 January to 200 and 2013, and not later than 31st December 2017. Okay, that's all for our presentation. Thank you.